Hey guys, Anthony with Archangel Racing here. I want to apologize that I haven't done any videos the past couple of races, and I haven't done any post-race reports per se. I've done a couple posts on Facebook, but not what I'm usually accustomed to trying to do for my sponsors and my followers, and that's mainly to do because it's been extremely hot the past 6 weeks, and I'm an HVAC certified technician, and it's been crazy here for just a little while. But let's go ahead and start off by recapping Oliver Brothers. First time we've ever raced there. It was a great track. You know, I always love it when we get to try out new properties, and sometimes it kind of levels the playing field just a little bit because nobody has raced these tracks, you know, consecutively year after year after year, and anybody that doesn't race the tracks or walk the tracks, you know, it's pretty much, you know, first lap is kind of mayhem, to be honest with you. And we actually did walk the track, and the day we walked the track, it was heat temperatures right around, I think it was 97 degrees, and the heat index, I don't even know what it was, but it was pretty bad. It was pretty brutal. Not a lot of elevation changes in that track. It was still a fun track. We got up to the starting line, and they were running a little bit behind from the quads earlier in the day, and it was so hot out on that starting line, there was nowhere to hide from the sun, and everybody kind of ducked into the woods after the cars were parked on the starting line and just waited. You know, after everything was lined up, we all got out of the cars and we all went back into the shade of the woods and waited for the start line ref, so to speak, to say, hey, we're getting ready to go. We actually got it was dry. It was we knew it was going to be a dusty race out in the open sections. The woods were actually pretty moist, and we knew that hole shot was going to be key, no matter what class you were in. And we got up on the line, and Chris Grosson dropped the flag, and we got a really good ignition start, and we took off. We got the hole shot through the first corner, and we pretty much checked out. My wife and we checked out and just kept pushing hard for the first 2-3 laps, and then we started, you know, that way we could, there was nobody behind us for quite a while, and I was like, okay, let's back it down and you know, try and conserve the car. And it actually worked for us. We went and ended up staying on the lead lap with the Pro Mod cars in the NA class, and we came up on the very last lap, and we were the only car that was still on the lead lap. And I'm like, okay, all right, you know, let's just go for it. We actually ended up getting, you know, we actually came around on the last lap, and I saw Mitch Wofford off the side of the track. He was getting ready to come onto the track, and we ended up lapping him, and then we had a hell of a good battle that last lap. I thought about just letting him go so that you know, I could conserve the car. I'd already won and everything, but I'm like, man, I've always, you know, it's always a great time when you can get with the one person that you know that's pretty much right there with you. You always wanted to battle him. We've had a couple battles in the past, and it was a really good last lap. It was a fun lap. We kind of beat and banged. It was it was a good last lap. We ended up finishing first in that race, and we took 6th overall. And that was out of, I don't quote me on this, but I want to say it was around 42, 44 cars. So it was a really, really good race. I was really happy with it, and it was a great time. I can't wait to go back to that place. It was a great track. I always love going to new properties, especially first time excursions, going to new properties, because like I said again, it's always a new experience, and it kind of levels the playing field. The next round, I think 3 weeks later, yeah, 3 weeks later, I want to say, we had another new property called Whiskey River. It was the first time IXCR had ever been down to Kentucky. Now this was down near Madison on the other side of the river, on the Kentucky side in Milton, Kentucky, and it was another record-breaking heat wave. It was pretty brutal. I know myself, I had my my toy hauler's generator going, running the AC the whole time, and I ended up going through almost 40 gallons of fuel just to keep the generator going the whole weekend because it was under a load. I don't think the AC ever shut off. It was that hot. We had temperatures of 97 degrees, and I think we had a heat index of almost 107, and it was pretty brutal. But we walked key parts of the track Saturday night, and I'm sorry, let me back up. Friday night, and then Saturday morning we actually went out and started walking some other key areas. It was, you know, when I say earlier in the morning, I'm talking about between 9 and 12, and that was when the temperatures were still okay and bearable. The temperatures actually got crazy in the afternoon after about 1 o'clock, and we went and walked a couple of key parts of the track that we knew were going to be challenging, to say the least, and we actually ended up getting lined up on the line. Felt pretty good about it. Now I'd actually had some issues with my front differential in my car, and basically it wasn't disengaging, so I knew there was something wrong with it. And from some wise words from Jason Wofford, I told him about it, and he said, don't ever take your car out of four-wheel drive, otherwise you may blow your front diff. Like, okay. He told me pretty much what was wrong with it, and after the fact, after the whole race and everything, I pulled it apart, and yes, he was right. So we're actually in the middle of making repairs on that as we speak. But we lined up. Mitch Wofford, he actually got one great hole shot. I don't know what happened to me. I got a good start, I thought, on the ignition, and then the car fell flat on its face, almost like it didn't start. It was almost like a false start, and I don't even know what that was all about. Teammate Rick Fitzgerald actually pulled out in front of me, and he's been having issues after he starts his car. We're not really sure what's going on with it. We've been trying to figure it out over the past 6 months, believe it or not. He basically takes off full throttle and everything's good, and he gets about 100 yards in and his freaking car just stalls out, completely bogs out and shuts down until he lets out of the throttle to get back into it. We're not 100% sure on what's going on with that, but we are working with Bikeman to try and get that corrected, and we have a couple of ideas what that is. But anyway, getting back to my start, like I said, I thought I got a good ignition. The car didn't start. I ended up having to restart it, got off the line, ended up falling in behind Rick Fitzgerald in the 303 car, and we going into the first corner, we were mid-pack at best, and I was like, wow, what just happened, man? And we ended up just kind of falling in the line and following the first lap. There was some really slower drivers in front of us that were really holding us up, and I kept trying to make moves on them, and there was nowhere to go. And again, this is a brand new property. There's not a lot of extra lines. It's all virgin trails. It's you know, kind of like at the mercy of what the woods has to offer. I mean, you might think you see a hole, and believe it or not, most of this property, there wasn't a lot of holes to actually go through that you could make passes on in the woods. They were pretty dense, pretty tight, a lot of down trees, a lot of down logs, a lot of rocks too. There was a section where we were going up through, we call it the rock garden. It was a hill that actually had a bunch of rocks. It was almost like a ravine runoff, but it was in the side of a hill. And that hill was very challenging. It didn't seem that bad when you got to the bottom of it, but as you made your way up, it had a fork. They made a fork split. One side went up into nice loomy dirt, and then you would have had to have come back onto the track with a sheer drop off at an off camber angle, And the first lap we went up there, I decided not to take it until I actually took the me and Rick Fitzgerald took the left line up at the top. Had a lot of rocks and a couple of downed trees and stuff. And when we came around, there was already one car that had flipped itself over on its lid trying to take the other line and dropped it back down into the main line. And I was like, okay, I'm glad I didn't take that line. So we got past that. There was another car between, it was a Razor, between myself and the 303 car of Rick Fitzgerald. And we got to this another short hill climb, and I guess Rick lost his power steering, and he basically started going up this hill, and I saw him, and he just went sheer left. It looked like he had lost control. I guess he actually did that on purpose because he needed to shut his car down and reset his power steering. Well, the other car that was between us went up the main line, and he just stopped mid-hill. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? And I'm like, I am not stopping. So I just went through this little ravine and started going up the main line. He had already stopped, and I just kept it to the floor and tried to go out to the right of him. And there was this big old freaking bush, I mean a pretty substantial bush. And I'm like, well, I'm going to plow that thing over. I'm not stopping. I kept it to the floor. And in doing so, I actually accidentally ran up on his passenger side rear tire. The car went way up in the air, and after it got off of that guy's car, came down on top of this bush that I was wanting to run over, and I was stopped, and I actually had to put it in low gear and then take off peeling out, and I did end up mowing that bush over. But we got around him and kept going. I'm not really sure what happened behind me with Rick. He got his, other than he got his power steering reset, he took back off, and I was making a pretty good pace, and then, yeah, disaster struck me. First off, we basically blew out a tire on the passenger side rear. I started feeling the car getting squirrely. I started realizing that the car was getting hard to control on right-hand turns and left-hand turns. It just wasn't handling at all. I'm like, I got a freaking flat tire on the passenger side rear. I just knew what corner it was, and we kept going. This was all in lap 1. And we started making lap 2. We were struggling, but we were still maintaining. And then we kept on going, and the Whiskey River property had 2 of the biggest hills that IXCR has ever had, second to Medora. Anybody that used to race Medora knows what I'm talking about. Last time we raced Medora, there was this monster hill right near the spectator area, and last time we raced it, we weren't able to do that hill because they had roped it off, and they fenced it off rather, and made it cow pasture, so there was no access or run at it. But these hills that Whiskey River had dwarfed that hill. They had some amazing long hills. One of them was actually 1.1 miles long to get up it, and the other one was 980, I think it was 987 feet long, and it was an elevation change of 300 feet. Pretty substantial. Fun hills. I was worried about them at first. I knew they were going to be fun if we could make them up it, but it was a challenge. I mean, that's a belt killer. It was fun. We made it up the first lap, made it up the second lap, and on the third lap that we went up this other 300-foot elevation hill, we got to the top and my car overheated. I had to pull off. Rick passed me. You know, it is what it is. I've been struggling with overheating issues on my car for a while. I'm actually in the process of trying to fix that problem permanently. I'm putting a majorly oversized radiator in it, and hopefully that takes care of the problem. But by the end of the day, Mitch Wofford had a great race. He actually ended up taking second in our class, and I want to say that I finished 7th because on the third lap coming around, we got the 2 laps to go board from the scoring tent, and I pulled through it, and my wife said, well, can't you make 2 more laps and finish the race? And I looked at her and I said, I sat there for just maybe 5 seconds, and I was thinking about it, and I'm like, man, I am flirting with disaster as it is. I've already done 2 laps with a bad tire, an overheating motor, and these hills are nothing to play around with. And I just felt like, you know what? I've already pushed it this far. I think I'm just going to call it. I'm pulling off, and I'm going to come back to fight another day. Because, yeah, I didn't want to hurt the motor, and I didn't want to tear up anything else on the car, and have major repairs. I've already got actually some pretty major repairs going on right now as it is, but I felt that if I kept going that it was going to be an even bigger repair. I was flirting with disaster. That's how I felt with it. So I pulled the car off the track. I ended up taking, I want to say, 7th in class, and God, I don't even know where I finished overall. I'd have to go back and look at the standings, but at that point, it didn't really matter to me. I was just trying to save the car. But honestly, Whiskey River, best IXCR track I think we've had in years. I love that place. I can't wait to go back to that place. I hope that the property owners want us back. It was a great time. We had a band on Friday night, Saturday night. It was just a great time. Great property, plenty of parking, nice flat parking, believe it or not. And we had major hills and lots of good racing. I don't know what it was like for the bikes and the quads, but for us side-by-side guys, it was awesome. I would love to go back there. It's a great property to go race on. But Bruce Barnum, I don't know if you guys have been following, anybody that's been following my post know that he's been having issues with his transmission, his clutch actually. And he actually, over the off season, took his car all the way out to Oklahoma, dropped it off at the nation's best acknowledgeable Yamaha dealership to actually have this car worked on and get the problem figured out. Well, they did. They figured it out, and they fixed it for him before the first race of the season. So that was a trip out to Oklahoma, back, and then back to Oklahoma to bring it back home. So he got 4 good races out of it, and Bruce has got a very powerful Yamaha motor in that thing with a Packard supercharger in it, and he got 4 races out of the car, and he fried the clutch. Okay, well, here's the thing. He went ahead and changed the clutch out in that car and showed up at this Whiskey River, and he wasn't even able to make but 1 lap due to a couple things. One, his car's clutch started messing up again, and he was like, dude, it's doing the same thing that it used to do. And then he also sheared off the steering splines off of the steering rack, and his steering knuckles, whatever, the spline. So he had 2 things working against him, so he was done. After 1 lap, I think he made 1 lap, and he came back in and he was done. So it wasn't a very good finish for Bruce, but come to find out, he did some research, and he was like, man, he was on the verge of just selling this car and getting a sequential car and doing it man versus clutch again. Well, he just loves this car, this SS that he's got. He loves it because he doesn't ever have to let off the throttle, and he can just keep on going and shifting because it's got the paddle shifters, and it's all electronic. The computer basically does an interrupt in the motor, and as soon as you pull it, it shifts gears without even ever lifting off the throttle, and you can't almost tell the difference. He's like, basically full throttle, boom, just a little blip. And he's like, man, I love this car so much. He goes, there's got to be a way to fix this car and figure it out, because there's so many people out there that are running 500 horsepower motors in these cars, and they're reliable. So he started doing some research, and basically what he figured out, and this is quite dumbfounding, he found out that when he got it back from the dealer in Oklahoma, it ran great for a while. for 4 races and 2 off-road riding trips with no issues. He put the new clutch pack in this car. When you replace the clutch pack, you got to change the oil. Well, he put the AMSOIL transmission differential fluid in there. Come to find out, that's what's taking his clutch out, because being that it's more like a motocross bike or a quad, it's got a wet clutch in there. You can't run that stuff. And yeah, most people say, well, like, duh. But you know what? It was kind of a brain fart type deal, and you know, he learned and found the problem. And basically what has to be ran is a motor oil, not a transmission differential fluid in that transmission, and that's what keeps burning the clutch up. So he's correcting that, and he's putting a new rack in the front end of that car, and we're actually doing some other work to the chassis of it. And we've only got a 3-week span to get all this done, and that's what's killing me. It's killing him. Rick's car is actually still fine. God, what a Rick! I want to say Rick finished 5th in Whiskey River, 5th in class, which is respectable. He was having all kinds of problems with traction. He's got some GBC Dirt Commanders on the back of his car that were just not hooking up at all, not doing him any favors on these big long hills, because that 300 elevation foot hill that I was just telling you about earlier, that hill was actually bulldozed. They came down the hill with a bulldozer to actually make a nice flat packed line going up this hill, because it was so long and so steep, and it had a lot of rock in it. It was really packed, and those Dirt Commanders that he had, they were kind of wore out, and he was sliding all over the place. So he's getting ready to, he's putting new tires on the back of that car, probably going to go with Grim Reapers. That's what I was running on my car all the way around, and man, do those things hook. If you can get them to hold up, man, those things hook like a madman. No traction issues there, but yeah, I mean, as far as the race team goes, Whiskey River was kind of a, I'm not going to say it was a disaster, but I'm going to say it was not what we were wanting as a team. And I will say that it was one of the best tracks that all of us agreed, one of the best tracks we've ever ran with IXCR. Can't wait to go back. Can't say that enough. I really want to thank the property owners for opening that place up to us, because that was one of the funnest tracks I've been on in a long time, and I can't wait to go back. But I mean, all in all, I mean, we didn't do too bad. We're kind of licking our wounds, but I'm hoping that this next round over at Mission Impossible in Attica, Indiana, we'll be able to have everything together and, you know, have everything on point. We've been, you know, including myself, Bruce, I mean, we've been trying to iron out gremlins, so to speak. I've been fighting gremlins in my car with overheating and clutching issues for 2 years, and I am this close to having it all ironed out. And same with Bruce with his when he went and bought that brand new Yamaha a couple years ago. You know, he started making big mods to it, and it's been a growing experience. I mean, anytime that you start dealing with a new car that's unfamiliar to the industry, it's growing pains, and everything that you do to it is it's like, is this going to work? Is it going to hold up? You know, you never know. And a lot of times when you start putting more power into a side-by-side, you're going to find out weak links, you're going to find out problems, and you're going to have to try and adapt to them and correct them. And it's just been one of those learning experiences over the past 2 years for most all of us on this race team. And it's been well worth it. We've gained a lot of knowledge out of everything that we've been through, and I'm thankful for that. But at the same time, I'm ready to start actually putting these cars back on the podium. So it was a good time. I'm really looking forward to Attica. I'm hoping that we can all get all our stuff back in line for the Attica race. We've only got 3 races left in the season, and so far it's still a pretty tight season for most everybody. And we're hopeful about what the outcome's going to be. And you know, I want to give a shout out to all of our sponsors, because they have, you know, with all the problems that we've had and all the things that we've had to go through and learn and everything else, you know, they've been a huge help, huge help. I can't say it enough. I mean, they have been in our corner the entire season, past couple years, and any problems that we have, any questions that we have, they try to help us. They help us out on parts and try and get things to us on time. You know, Part Shark is a big one for us because they're our supplier for OEM parts. They help us out majorly. They're part of Flat Out up on the northeast side of Indianapolis. If you guys haven't ever been to their website, go look them up, partshark.com. The other big one is Bikeman Performance. Bikeman has been probably the most monumental help to this team on every car that we have on this team. From setup to motor builds to just getting things running right to tunes and everything else. They've been monumental, especially with the razors that we have, both with my car especially. It's been a 2-year project, and anybody that's been following my race reports knows everything about what I've been dealing with my car for 2 years. That car is almost this close to being on point. If we can get the motor to stay cool, she's a monster. So that's what we're trying to work on right now. And like I said, I can't thank all of our sponsors enough. You got Fly Racing, Mace Powder Coating. We got High Octane graphics for our graphics. We've got just a bunch of really good people in our corner, and I want to thank them all enough. I'm sorry if I'm not mentioning you on this video, but you all know who you are, and you're all going to be noted in the text in this video posted on Facebook. So I thank you all. So thank you very much, and watch to see maybe a couple of videos coming. I've got some media from Oliver Brothers and Whiskey River. Been trying to find time to go ahead and make some videos. It's been, like I said, with the heat and being an HVAC tech, it's been crazy. I've been having problems with my laptop. It's just been stupid. I really want to get some more videos out there, so just stay tuned. I hope to have some more videos put out there for the side-by-side guys. I know a lot of guys enjoy watching them, so just stay tuned, and we'll see you at the Mission Impossible in Attica, Indiana. So stay tuned. We'll see you later.